Hello everyone and welcome to Red Books. We're here in the heart of Wexford Town in historic St. Peter's Square. We're very honoured to be involved with this year's Wexford Literary Festival, a great initiative. I have to commend everybody involved for being able to, for the second year in a row in the middle of a pandemic, for being able to make this festival happen. We established Red Books almost 5 years ago. The first Red Books was in a shed in Bridgetown. And one of the first things we wanted to do was to tie in with local creative people, local writers, local poets, and encourage them and try to foster that outside art, that outside creativity, that outside writing that we knew must have been going on and wasn't being picked up on. So we set up a writers group. We thought maybe we'd get 5 people. So over the last couple of years, we've had over 200 writers attend that group, stretching from all across Wexford, from outside Wexford, even as far away as Australia and Italy. So we've been very lucky. But I suppose the greatest thing has been seeing some of these writers go on to bring out books. So with that in mind, in the autumn of 2020, we established Red Books Press, a small cooperative publishing house. The idea of Red Books Press wasn't to make money, because that would be very difficult, and it wasn't to become gatekeepers, because God knows there's enough gatekeepers involved in publishing at the moment as it is. It was to encourage writers to go forward and to get their works published, because they say everybody has a book in them, but it's very difficult to actually sit down and write a book and finish it. And anybody who does that, they deserve to be celebrated. They deserve to be lauded. So in October 2020, we brought out Every Second by Dan Finn. It was the first book out. Dan was very kind to allow us to put the Red Books label on this book. It's a science fiction thriller. They're still available in Red Books, as all the books I'm about to show you are available in Red Books, and they're available on the irishbookshop.com. So Dan was first out of the box. Next up, we had Dr. Sean O'Neilan and Professor David Bernal Casas with Follow the Sun, a science journal. So you might say there's not really a theme here. You have a science fiction book and then a science journal. But the whole idea was that we wouldn't, I suppose, diminish anybody. We wanted all writing, all creativity to come through us. Next up was All of Them Hipsters by Mr. Zeph Ryder. I won't go into too much detail on this one because I know Zeph is going to talk about it himself, but one of my favourite books of 2020. And then we had Through a Farmer's Eyes by Mahi White. Mahi is a neighbour of mine down in Banno, and this book sold out twice. So there was 2 print runs and both of them sold out, and Mahi gave all the money. He didn't keep anything for himself. He gave it all to 2 charities, My Lovely Horse and Wexford Marine Watch. And then this year, we had The Hydra Syndrome by Daithí Kavanagh come out. It was the second book in Daithí's dystopian trilogy. It was the first one to come out directly with the Red Books label on it. So it's a great honour to be connected with these writers. They're all doing their own thing, and there's so much more going on that you don't hear about. Every day we're getting new people coming in here asking us, will they will we sell their books for them, which is brilliant. You know, I think we now have the largest collection of independent published books of any bookstore in Ireland. So it's a brilliant thing. And as I said, we didn't want to come into this to become gatekeepers, because gatekeepers have done more damage to literature in the second half of the 20th century and the early 21st century than even the book burners of the 1930s. We want to see more diverse, more outside books come to fruition. I always think of the story of John Kennedy O'Toole, who wrote Confederacy of Dunces. He couldn't get it published, and unfortunately he committed suicide. And years later, a publishing house published it, and the readers discovered it, and it became a cult hit. And today it's known by some as that mystical great American novel. So imagine what Kennedy O'Toole could have done if he had lived, if he had found success in his own life. Imagine what he could have written. Imagine what he could have contributed to our shared culture. And there's been a lot of that. Franz Kafka died a failure. Philip K. Dick died penniless. Writers don't always get a good run during their lifetime, and it's up to readers to discover them. The two fundamental pillars in literacy are writers and readers, and we seem to have forgotten that. And maybe that's why our world is such a mess at the moment. So what we want to do is we want writers to come forward, get their books published, and we want to deliver them to the readers. We want to cut out the middlemen. And when I say the middlemen, that includes us, booksellers, publishers, online critics, and book review groups, because they're not needed. What's needed are writers and readers. And that's why this Wexford Literary Festival is of immeasurable importance. And I have to commend everybody involved.
What? You guys don't wear makeup like this all the time too? Oh, it's totally a writer thing, let me assure you. Just wake up, paint it on, go to the typewriter, get to work. Joyce did it. It's fine. It's fine. So you love hanging out in bookstores. You absolutely eat paper. You drink ink. Your brain is bristling with ideas. You know there's a story inside you. You just need to get it out. Fantastic. Congratulations. You're going to be a writer. That's such an exciting and incredibly fulfilling thing to do. But you're not entirely sure where to go with that. So with a lot of work, a lot of dedication, a lot of focus and research, milling at an idea, you too might be able to write a book. Or if you're really, really lucky, a lot of them. So you've got your idea. Where do you go from there? Okay, the first thing to do is definitely research. Research and research and research. Research not like a story that you're telling, not like a thing that isn't true. Go far beyond details till you know every little thing about this person, backwards and front. The good parts about them, the terrible parts about them, their most painful memories, the song that they hate. Know them like a person. Know their story like a memory. That's the first step. Once you have that, be really shrewd with yourself and consider your audience. If you're just preserving this story for your children or for your parents or for your friends, if you're writing it just for yourself, that's entirely valid. Go ahead and do that. But if you want to write something that you think the world might want to read, consider your audience. Study what moves them, what interests them, and then decide for yourself if that's what you want to do, or if you categorically wish to work against that. You want to strike out like an iconoclast and instead write what you don't see represented, something that you wish existed and you can't seem to find. That voice is valid too. There's never a voice more needed in the choir than the one you can't already hear. Once all of that's done, the next part is the most tremendous amount of work possible. It's hours and hours of disciplined thought. It's focus. It's getting outside of yourself, incredibly outside of yourself, learning to see in an entirely different way so that the artists and the creations, the characters that are rendered in your work that exist are breathed into life not as a mirror or reflection of you, but as something unique, something all their own. Then, of course, comes the writing, the actual physical writing. Try your best to only put into it what is absolutely necessary for it. Resist embellishing. Develop a practice. Just like any other exercise, just like any other discipline, writing is absolutely a discipline. Once that's done, do your best to not cherish your work so much that you're unwilling to take on criticism, because criticism is necessary and important. Surrender your work and be honest about the criticism that you receive. The most important and cutting criticism can be absolutely essential to your work. Try to always be the best possible version of yourself. Create the best possible story that you can. And when something doesn't fit that or something doesn't serve that purpose, remove it. Put it away. Maybe you can use it later. Once the story is laid, the criticisms are considered. This is when a story begins to really take shape. It has a form, it has all of the events in it, but you really want to shave it down, shape it, and turn it into something that has a physical body and stands on its own, a sense of style. You want your books to resemble each other so that they take on a body, so that they look uniform. Where any Sophie Hollander story, per se, looks like a Sophie Hollander story. Who's your Sophie Hollander? Who's the character that you'll be known for, that you can create? What's the story that's so important and so good that you need to tell it, that other people need to read it? Once you have that process down and you've proofed it and begun editing it yourself, take on an editor. I cannot stress this enough. A professional editor will bring to the project vantage and experience and a professionalism that you're not really necessarily capable of giving yourself. So find a good editor. You're trusting them with a work, so take that work seriously. But when you're done, I'm about to finish my series, my Sophie Hollander series. And I've written, at this point, 7 books for Sophie. And I love her. Like a real person, like a friend. I will be very sad to see her go. And I'm so incredibly proud of myself. Not just for the doing it, the research, the travel, learning languages, going to entirely new places, meeting people, learning skills. The nights I've spent like crying and really thinking about experiences, pushing myself outside of my comfort zone, making myself see things from an entirely different perspective. It wasn't necessarily even the writing. It's an entirely different thing to write something that you love this much and then put it out into the world and hope other people like it too. Even a person who might seem really confident, who might be dramatic or a bit theatrical or well-spoken or seemingly confident, can be given a moment of pause when they think about laying themselves bare in the way that making a book can do. It's a very personal and very kind of intimate thing to share a book with someone. I wrote the best character I could write. I created a person that's very dear to me, but she doesn't only belong to me. She belongs to every person who now reads her. That image of Sophie Hollander in their mind is personal to them. I don't have that relationship that they have with them. Try to remember that when you create something. Remember that this thing you're creating exists inside the mind of the person you're giving the book to, the story to, that their relationship to your work won't belong to you. Try to leave the reader changed by what they experience. Hopefully for the better, but definitely changed. And if you can do that, if you push yourself and you focus, if you are dedicated and hardworking, if you're honest and critical of yourself and able to take that, criticism and take that self-evaluation and take those sharp edges and refine them, then you too might be able to create something entirely original, or, well, as original as you can make it from your inspirations and your research and your study and your influence. I don't know what I'm going to write after I finish the series that I have written so far. Sophie ends in August, and Minuet will very likely be finished next year. But I know that I can do that. I know that I can think someone into existence. Flaws and victories and happiness and love and loss and goodness. I can create someone I wish I knew, and create someone that other people really care about. And now that I can do that, I can't imagine ever giving that up. So often we give the idea of being literary, these great, important people. We think of like Brendan Behan, and we think about James Joyce, and we think about William Shakespeare. But there's such magic in just telling a story. In doing that thing where you just, between you and your keyboard or your typewriter, your pen, you open yourself up and you give a piece of who you are to the world. And on this literary festival, I would say, do it. If you can do it, then absolutely do it. You may not sell a lot of copies. You may not have a huge dedicated fan base. You may not be famous. You may not be great. Do it anyway. Create and create and create. Because before Sophie Hollander, there was another character. Before that character, there was another character. There was fan fiction. There were journal entries. There was poetry in high school. There was always something. And if you feed that something and you develop it and you take classes and you learn and you challenge yourself, if you push yourself to new and interesting places, you might make something that makes another person happy, or makes another person cry, makes another person feel, someone maybe you've never met. I don't know how to be more magical than that. I'm so grateful that I got that close to magic in the first place. My name is Ruby O'Connor. I'm a writer. I live in Wexford, Ireland, and I have so far written 12 books. I don't know how many more I'm going to write. But here, during the Wexford Literary Festival, which I've been asked to create a piece of work for, I would just urge you to take that chance and put that something into the world. And don't be daunted by the idea that you aren't those literary giants, those literary greats, because I bet you'll find that with an awful lot of people, it isn't, a great, profound literary giant that helped them get through a bad time or a medical diagnosis or a divorce. It didn't help them when they were a lonely teenager. It was a book that isn't necessarily great or isn't necessarily well known that might have alleviated their loneliness or given them joy. That maybe had the line that they will one day say to the person that they love. And you can write that. It might already be in your head. The true magic, I think, of writing isn't just that we can affect that kind of emotion in others. It's that any of us could be capable of that. Be brave, honest, and hardworking. And maybe one day You'll be able to give someone else advice too. Good luck. And all the best on your adventure and wherever it takes you.
Hello, I am Zeph Ryder, and I'm going to read a bit from my book, All of Them Hipsters. It's available at our Red Books in Wexford Town. I am a writer of hysterical fiction, and this is my debut novel, even though it's not my first novel, because I've written 1,000 but finished one, so that's my debut novel. It is a piece that plays off in the Ming dynasty of China, and it's a beautiful love story with the protagonist being a young Chinese girl named Hyacinth, and she falls in love with a wild deer and follows the deer around. It's frowned upon by the elders, and it's got a strong, very strong circle motif in the book. We look at the circle of her love for the deer and the deer loving her, and also what we then have as a second circle motif is the life cycle of the deer tick, the little brown deer tick that causes so many problems everywhere. In Ireland with terrible things like Lyme disease and such. So the life cycle of the tick sits on the deer, lays its eggs, more ticks, and sure, you know the detail. So without further ado, I'm just going to read a bit. I'm just going to open up anywhere randomly in the book. Right, so thought. 10 October 2020. It would have been your birthday today. This is the first birthday you are not on this earth. We all found out that Eddie Van Halen had passed today. Immediately we started phoning each other, texting each other, me and the Swan and the Puff Adder. We're all thinking that EVH, Eddie Van Halen, joined you in the afterlife. We make up stories about the time you're having now, up there or down there, wherever you ended up, jamming the guitar together. You teaching Eddie Van Halen Afrikaans swear words, and teaching him how to braai wors, and more importantly how to say wors, Afrikaans sausage, phonetically wors. So all our heroes are dying. That means we have to be our own heroes and save ourselves. I send you a message in the virtual realm. It makes me feel that you are still alive, and that is one of the few reasons I still bother my whole partaking in the way of the cesspit. If I let that go, I can never friend you again, and then you're really dead, really gone. I know, it is a very laughable way to think of things. We all lost people, the world lost people, and we grieved before these steps came into fruition. We all had our photo albums full of memories. Being on a digital platform does not make you alive if you're living. It doesn't make you any more dead when you're dead. But I would wager that it makes you more dead when you are living. And the more connected we all seem, the less connected we are. I write with none of that stimulus. This is just me and the paper and the typewriter keys and my memories of you. And on these pages, you are more alive to me than on your picture on a profile. So, All of Them Hipsters, Red Books, Wexford Town. Buy it.
I sat for a while, and once I felt the cold find its way to my bones, I started strolling back home. I thought about the type of questions I could be asked and how I'd answer them. I imagined myself sitting on the chair, cameras facing me, an audience clinging on to every word I said. The thought made me feel queasy, but I knew I had to be strong and manage my emotions. If I let them get the better of me, I could ruin everything, and I hadn't come this far to fail now. As I was walking, I started to feel paranoid, as if somebody was watching me. I kept looking around me, but there were no obvious signs for me to feel this way. I started walking a little faster, but the faster I got, the more I felt this strange feeling. I looked back and saw somebody stop and turn to face the other way. They were too far away for me to see clearly, but I could tell that it was a man, and something about him just didn't feel right. I took out my phone and pretended to be on a call, and almost sprinted all the way home. The fear was just too much for me to look back a second time. The fear of it actually being somebody following me, and the fear that it wasn't, and that I actually was just being paranoid. I slammed the door shut and tried to control my breathing, then ran for the kitchen to look out the window and see if there was anyone there, but there wasn't. I sat against the counter holding my head in my hands. Relax, it's nothing. This is normal. I am normal, everything is fine. I turned around to fill up the kettle, and in the corner of my eye, I saw him. There he was, standing on the path of the front of the house, just looking at me. The kettle fell out of my hands and the splash of water made me break eye contact. I looked back up and saw him walking away, and then the panic struck. Was that real? Was that actually him? My heart was thumping again and my hands were shaking. I didn't know what to do because I wasn't sure if my eyes were deceiving me. Hi guys! So what you just heard there is actually a piece from a fictional novel that I've written called Brona. So I'm publishing it through Red Books in aid of the Rape Crisis Centre Wexford, and 50% of the proceeds are going to go to the centre because unfortunately their work is very high demand in our county. My goal is to highlight the reason why their work is in such high demand through Brona's story, while highlighting other areas that I feel are issues in our county and country surrounding sexual assault and rape. So I'm currently finishing the sequel, which I hope to publish a couple of months after I publish Brona, and we are hoping for an outdoor launch, obviously complying with regulations when the time comes. So keep your eyes peeled. Strange to be so excited about something that is so dark, but I really am really excited to share this finally with you because I wrote it like nearly 2 years ago. So thanks everyone for all of the support, for even just watching this video. I really hope to see a few familiar faces at the launch, and yeah, thanks very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day guys, bye!
Hello, my name is Dean Mudger and I'm releasing my first collection of poems called Collection of the Night Poems. That will be released August 7th under the Red Books publishing company. So I'll just read one of the poems from that. It's called No Rain, No Flowers. I'm not lost, find me in nirvana, smiling, naked, wondering, melting under the platonic midnight hour, questioning the flowers. Knee-deep in dark mystery, far from the ash clouds of self-pity that weep in graveyards of the celestial sun, and all the scared faces hiding in the valley of doom, tying heaven together with iron bows, screaming, dying, vomiting, chasing elevators while time dies of old age. It's a jungle out there. People eating the raw flesh of so-called friends and people and regurgitate the raw flesh of so-called friends and people. Darkness quivering at the dawn. What a circus! Such clowns juggling love and society with desperate hands. Save me from them and let me dance with the naked visionary angels that cry naked visionary tears, because their world and my world and their tears and my tears are infinite wisdom that make heaven open and smile and pour soft sweet touches of magic and make everything still and make everything quiet and make everything in wet glisten in diamond glow. Silence has only been broken by echoing clouds of smiles and birdsong and sweet serenity, droplets of frisson expanding like bubbles bursting, soaking sweet senses in paradise. And the world was wet and the world was waiting and everything was just lovable. Everything is wet. Everything is naked. Even my secret naked poems drown in secret streams of naked consciousness that flow from silent valleys that once barked eternity through metal souls. Once the colour grey set in stone, once the colour of colourlessness. Now a big fat rainbow that everybody looks at and goes, "Ah." Sure, that is life. What is life? I don't know. Maybe the blink of an eye, an expression through art. Maybe love, maybe tears, 'cause tonight even angels weep under feathered joy and skip from here to there to the moon that most look at but don't understand. How can their minds be silent while their heart screams and trees dance from the dark forest for them, and probably for me too, and their eyes shine, mine probably do too. But soon nighttime will lift and cover the earth in humanity as my heart aches at 1,000 suns but shines bright still. The captain of fucking flame knocking at existence from behind hidden shades. The queens of my fucking highway. Oh, just to be free with the night to kiss the moon and dream neath the stars, 'cause we're all just dream dust, bursting through the universe like shooting flames, leaving tattoos of hope across foreheads of the damned, leaving nothing but happiness and goosebumps of forever.
Hello, me again. I'm back for another little short video. This time it's on behalf of the Red Book section in the Wexford Literary Festival, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about my own writing and how I go about it and the books that I've written. I have a couple of samples here. This is the latest one I've brought out, called The Hydra Syndrome, set in the future and during a pandemic, which is very topical at the moment. And this man is trapped in his house in London, and he's thinking about his life in general and the mistakes he made during his life. And so if you want to drop into Wally's, there's copies there. There's also this one, The Green Wave, another dystopian novel set in the future, and it's about a takeover of the Greens. And unfortunately, after the takeover, the Greens are taken over by corporations and the world is put into a form of slavery. No harm of the Greens, I'm not trying to get at the Greens here, it's simply a story about how things can go terribly wrong. So if you're interested in that, there's also some copies of that in Red Books. And here's the first book I brought out in paperback, Small House Cooperative, set in Wexford, about a group of lads who decide they're living in flats, bedsits, and they decide that they're going to form a little group and start buying their own houses. So that's the Small House Cooperative. It's basically a tale about the underbelly of Wexford Town and these chaps going around from pub to pub. I suppose you could say a miniature Ulysses set in Wexford. Only I'm no James Joyce, but very interesting if you're from Wexford. So there are 3 books that I've brought out in paperback. I have another one coming out soon about a Nazi takeover in Ireland, and that's part of this dystopian trilogy that I'm writing. And I have another one in the pipeline which is set in Bannon, County Wexford, and that is kind of a psychological horror story. So I'm hoping to get into that kind of genre now soon. So how do I go about writing? Well, I started off writing in copybooks, and my wife, who was a legal secretary for 35 years, she used to type them up for me. But then I decided I'd start typing them myself, and I find it much more interesting and easier to go back over and edit and look at the mistakes you might have made. And then I go into Wally's and I buy loads of books, and these help me. I like to study writers, you know, the great writers. I love them. Dostoevsky, people like that, I think they're fantastic. And I'm after getting some fantastic books off of Wally, really brilliant. Here's some of them behind me there. but that's only a small section. I have hundreds of books downstairs. This is my little kind of office, Ella's bedroom, and I turned it into my little kind of writing area after she left. And I have my record player there behind the laptop, and books, any books that I'm using at the time when I'm writing that are topical, are relating to the story that I'm writing. And research, for me, is important. Some people it isn't, but for me research is very important, and I research quite a lot. I use philosophers, I use people like, for instance, Carl Jung, Dostoevsky, as I said. I take quotes from books and use them in my own stories, and take ideas and redo it to suit the story that I'm writing, and I find it really enjoyable doing that, and you're also learning every day while you're writing. So that's my little video for today. Hope someone got something out of it. If anyone ever wants to talk to me about writing or how to get into it, initially I wrote 3 crime novels called the Tyke Sullivan series, and they were brought out as e-books, published as e-books, but I've taken them down now, and I'm gonna, hopefully in the next few months or the next year, I'm going to bring them out also as paperbacks. So that's roughly around 7 or 8 novels that I have either out or in the pipeline to come out. So you know, if I can do it, anyone can do it. So if you're interested in writing, get into it, get down to Wally's. You'll get plenty of support in Wally's, and when things open up after the virus, there are writing classes going down there, and really helpful, you know, great people, and no one thinks they're any better than the other person that's in the room, which is really great. You know, we're all just ordinary people trying to write, and trying to write the best we can. So I'll finish at that, and hope you enjoyed this little short video, and I'll see you all again. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Hi, my name is Chris Black, and through your good offices, the offices of the Wexford Literary Festival, and at the request of Wally O'Neill from Red Books and Red Books Press Publishing, who are publishing a book of poetry of mine later on in the year with a working title of Poetry from the Manshed. I would like to read you 2 short poems from the book. Thank you. It's not the world that's annoying. My aged bones, like bamboo sticks, a frame on which clothes just hang. Remembering when life was exuberant, when skin was smooth. Now, seats must be cushioned. Time was when it was a pleasure to sit on a stile, watch the world go by, listen to bird song, read a book. The mind now drifts. I write for myself, speak only to myself. Gone are those times I wrote for others, stood at the lectern, addressed an audience. There are times I get annoyed with the world, but it's not the world's fault. Thank you. And the second poem is titled One Touch of Nature Makes the Whole World Kin, a line from Shakespeare. In this upside-down world, wind blowing through her wings, she bows and curtsies as she glides, a thing of beauty, this Grecian goddess. plunging and plummeting, creating waves. In this upside-down world, nothing will remain the same. Like the graceful swan, calm above water, paddling frantically below. Beauty is listening to soft breezes blow, to the carols of birds, watching flowers lift their heads. This, while meandering through shady woods. In the words of P.B. Shelley, soft sunshine, and the light and smell divine of all flowers that breathe and shine, all may live happy there. Thank you, and good luck with the festival, and congratulations to all those who are winners. All were winners, anybody that had an entry, and for those that were lucky enough to win, congratulations to you.